Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today for our webinar on a Xero overview. Today I intend to just do a very brief overview of Xero. At Thorntons, we like to assist clients with all their software. We support all the software that clients use, but lately we've had quite a few clients that have asked us about Xero. They're thinking of moving to Xero possibly in the future, and they just wanted to have a bit of an overview of what it's all about. So we thought we would do this webinar to give you a bit of an overview. So I'll start with talking about Xero, and then go through quite a few pages in the demo file just to give you a bit of a snapshot of it, and then I'll finish off with the pricing of Xero. So if you did decide that you wanted to move your software to Xero, Thorntons can help you along the way. We can either do it all for you, or we can assist you a little bit, or we can just set up the file and share it with you, and then you can go ahead and do it yourself. So basically, we can be involved as much or as little as you want. The way that we work is that we use Xero for our ledgers, so we would then upgrade the file to whichever version you would like. We'll give you full access to that file. If you're coming from another software, we would then help you to bring across the chart of accounts, any customers, any suppliers that you would like to bring across from your existing software. At that point, we tend to like people to have a look at what they've got in their existing software and maybe clean it up a bit. There might be a few accounts that you don't use. There may be suppliers or customers that you no longer deal with. So we would suggest that at that point, it's a good time to clean up your chart of accounts, clean up your software, just bring across what you do use. Another thing that we do when you move to Xero is we would help you to add in your bank accounts and set up your bank feeds, and we would also set up opening balances for you, so it'd be all ready to go. Okay, what I'll do now is I will share my screen with you, and we'll look at the demo company, the Xero demo company. So I'll just shift here to this dashboard. Okay, so this is the demo company for Xero. And this is when you log into Xero, when you first log in, this is the screen that you come to. Just before that though, when we set up Xero for you and we share with you, you'd receive an email inviting you to log in. Your login will be always your email address, and then you create a password. You'll also be asked to set up two-factor authentication, which is their additional security. And to use this, there's two methods, but the most common method is just to get your phone, your smartphone, scan the barcode, and then you have to enter in a 4-digit code. You only have to do this every 30 days, so you can save that code and renew it every 30 days. It's just an additional layer of security. So when you come into Xero, this is the first screen you see, which is the dashboard. There's also the business menu, accounting menu, payroll menu, projects menu I won't go over in this webinar, but that's an additional, I guess, add-on that you can opt to use. If you've got a business that deals with separate projects that you want to keep track of the costs for example, if you were a home builder and you wanted to keep track of the costs for each of those homes, then you would use that projects module. And then the final menu is the context menu, where your suppliers and your customers are. So in the dashboard menu, and this is fully customizable, so you can add and remove any of these sections. Basically, it has a snapshot of your bank accounts. It has a little snapshot of your debtors, which is what people owe you, invoices that are awaiting payment there. It has your creditors, which is the bills that you have to pay, and shows you what you've got that are overdue possibly, and then what's coming up in the next few weeks. You can also add in this section here is your accounts watch list. And so this is where you would add in accounts that you want to keep a track of. So obviously, if you've got employees, then you might want to keep track of pay-as-you-go withholding that you've got to pay together with your BAS on a monthly or quarterly basis. We also encourage clients to maybe add in GST payable. You might want to add in loans there, any expenses that you want to keep a particular track of. And yeah, it's quite easy to add them into your watch list. So when you move to Xero, when you first set up Xero, you add in your bank accounts. It usually takes a week for the bank feeds to come through if the bank needs a form that gets filled in and sent through to the bank. There are quite a few banks though where you can go into here and using your bank login, you can set up your bank feeds straight away. And we basically recommend that you do that as soon as you can, because bank feeds will save you a lot of time. So if I go into this screen here, this business bank account screen, and to the reconcile page. So this page here is a snapshot of your bank account. On the left-hand side are all your bank feeds. So this is basically replicates your statement or your transactions that are coming through from the bank. And then on the right-hand side is where you code them in Xero. So these are the transactions that haven't been reconciled yet. And as you can see, there's a couple of suggestions here already. So what Xero has done is it's matched up income and expenses with suggestions of where it thinks it should go. This one here, obviously, the demo company, we've raised an invoice to Ridgeway University for this amount. And so when the funds have come in, Xero is saying, okay, it looks like this is for the payment of this invoice. Is this correct? If it's correct, you click on OK, and that's all you have to do. If you don't think it's correct, you can go into the Create screen and say, overwrite the suggestion, but 9 times out of 10, the suggestions will be correct. And this one here again is, for example, this is a bill that's been set up to pay, and because the payment has come through, it's matching it up with the bill to pay. I'll skip this one for the moment. What we recommend for all of our clients is, where possible, set up rules. And you can basically see here, for example, that with Cooper Street Bakery, if you're always buying morning tea for clients, client meetings, that sort of thing, you might want to set up a rule. You go into here and create bank rule, and you might want to say, okay, every time there's a payment to Cooper Street Bakery, I'd like that payment to go to lunches, entertainment, that sort of thing. Bank fees is another one where down here you can see there's a rule that's been set up here, and basically every time it says bank fees, we want it to go to this bank fees account. If you're not sure what to do with a payment or an income, there is a discuss button here that you can click on, and you can basically just put in here, look, this person's put, this is for an old invoice, I'm not sure where to put it. So you just save that discussion point, and then once you've done everything else, you can email us or your bookkeeper and say, look, there's a few items I'm not sure what to do with. Can you have a look at them? And they're in the discuss tab, and we can just go in and have a look at what you've done. So you'll find that the bank rules will take a little while at the beginning to set up, but once you've got them all input each day or week, it won't take you very long to reconcile your bank account. Okay. So I'll just move to the next tab now. The next tab is your business tab. In the business tab, it has a couple of handy reports here that you might want to look at. But the key things in the business tab are your invoices. So this is for customer invoices, and your bills to pay. So this is where you're paying your supplier invoices. So if we go into the invoices screen, so you can create a new invoice. You just click on new invoice, and it comes up with the screen to create a new invoice. And at the beginning, when you first start with Xero, you'd probably want to go in and set up the style of your invoice. You would add in a logo, for example, set up what fields you want in there. That's all very easy to do. That you do that in this bit here in settings, So I'll just open up settings in a new screen. And in the settings menu, there's invoice settings, payment settings, etc. here, payroll settings. And in invoice settings, you can create all your different branding for your invoices. So you might want to have a different branding depending on different customers and the way that they pay. And you can choose between all your different branding themes there. And it's very easy to add in an invoice. You just choose your customer here. You might just want to choose, I'll just see, like there's, for example, Gateway Motors. It might be a customer that you're using. It will automatically come up with an invoice number each time based on the invoicing sequence. You can set how your due date, this one here is obviously the same due date, but you might want to set in your settings that the due date is going to be in 14 days. And then you just put in the item from a list of items, or you can add in a new item and quantity and price. And that's all you really need to do, and it will calculate the GST for you. So once you've saved that invoice, it'll be saved as a draft invoice. And then when you finalize the invoice, then they go into awaiting payment. Okay. And if a customer comes, and if you know that a customer's paid you, you can go in there and mark it as paid. Go into the invoice here, and if you add payment, you can put in the payment date, the account that it's going to come into, and the amount paid. If they've only done a part payment, you can add a part payment here. And then when you add that in, if you add in the payment, it'll show us it's been paid, and it will move to the paid folder here. And then when the money comes in from the client, that's when in your dashboard, in your bank account, it'll match it up and say, look, there's money paid, and matches up to that invoice. Okay. Okay, the other thing with invoices is you can email them out to clients very easily. You can set it out to be automatically emailed out. You can send out statements to clients. You can also set up invoice reminders. So you might want to say, okay, I'd like to remind customers on the day before that the invoice is due. And then I'd like to also send out a reminder after 14 days, 28 days, etc. Whatever parameters you like to put in there. And then Xero will automatically email to the client saying your invoice is due and here's a copy of the invoice. The other thing you can do is set up payment methods. So in the invoice, there's Xero has a number of partners that they partner with to allow payments, credit card facilities, direct debit facilities, that sort of thing. And you can attach those to the invoices, and then the client gets them and they can just click in pay now and it'll take you to a payment gateway. So that actually also assists with collecting the funds there. Okay, so if I go now to bills to pay. So when you receive a bill that you need to pay, you enter it in this screen. So you can either go in and manually enter it in a new bill, and basically it's the same similar format as the invoices out. You might say, okay, who's it going to be from? And it's from Gable Print, for example, the due date, the reference, and you can enter in the details there, and you approve that bill to be paid. The other way that you can set up invoices is if you receive an invoice on a PDF format, then you can email it to your Xero account. So the way that you do that is, sorry, we'll just go here, bills to pay. Under bill purchases overview of bills to pay, there's create bill from email. And basically there's an email address that is unique to each Xero file. This is the one for this demo file here. And you copy that, and I set it up in my Outlook as a contact, and I could just call it email Xero bills. And then basically every time you receive a bill from a client that's from a supplier that's in a PDF format, you email it to this address. And then once it gets emailed in, it receives it, it creates a draft bill from that email. So then if I did one earlier and it created a draft bill for me, And I'll just go in this one here. Right, and it created a draft bill for me. It didn't know the contact because that contact wasn't already in there. So if I can at the time just add in that contact. If the contact's never been in there before, you just type in and add it as a new contact. It's brought in the date there, and it's brought in the due date, it's brought in the reference number, and it's brought in the amount. This bill, it doesn't know what it's for. So this is where at this point you would put in the details here and you put in the account, and it might be legal expenses, for example, and then the GST populates through that. So by using this email to bill facility, it does save you a lot of time. There's a more complicated way of doing that, which is using HubDoc, which is a Xero add-on. When clients first move to Xero, I tend to not get them to use HubDoc just because it is a little bit more to learn. This process is very simple. Once you've been using Xero for a couple of months, then you might want to look at HubDoc because there are additional features in HubDoc that make it a lot easier as well. And for example, there's a lot of suppliers, for example, phone companies, Telstra, Optus, that sort of thing, where HubDoc can actually go and get the bill for you rather than you receiving it through email. It grabs it each month and brings it in as a draft bill to pay. So that's quite convenient. So, but this, this method here is quite easy to use. So once you've got your bills that you want to pay there, you basically can go in and say, okay, these are awaiting payments, and you can then set up a batch payment to upload to your bank. So you might want to select 2 or 3 of these bills to pay, and you might say, okay, I'd like to add a batch payment for these, pay those 4 bills. And then depending on whether those customers have been set up properly, you'll be able to send that batch payment straight away. There may be some details that need to be set up. And in this case, for example, this is the demo company. So the BSB and account number haven't been set up for these customers. I'll show you this later. There's in your contact screen, this is where you would set this up so that you've got that permanently entered in there. And once that detail is permanently entered in there, it makes it much easier because then you can create this batch payment. Once you create it, you can upload the ABA file to your bank and all the details will go through automatically. So that's quite convenient as well. So I'll get out of that screen for now. Okay, so that's all that there is really on the pay invoices screen. Obviously, we saw back in the dashboard that you can see what invoices are due and which invoices are payable. But in the report screen, you can also see a more detailed report of the aged payables, for example, and aged receivables. So if I just go into here, one thing you can do when you're moving from one screen to the next, if you right-click or use your little mouse button and click on one of these items, it'll open up in a new screen. So then you've got different screens open. So there's your age payable summary in detail there. That's that report there. Okay. So the other thing in the business reports here is products and services. This is where you would add in items of inventory. Xero does track inventory for you, but it's very basic inventory tracker. If you've got a lot of stock, then we would suggest that you use one of the Xero add-ons. But this screen or this item here is where you would just go in and to put items for sale. There's also an expense claims section as well. I won't go into that at the moment, but basically you can capture expenses. You can take photos of expenses, of cash expenses, and send them through to claim them as well. In this screen, I'll just look at this business snapshot screen because this is actually quite a nice little snapshot of where you are, and it's basically at any time that you're choosing. So this is the last financial year. You might want to say, okay, last quarter, this last quarter. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's in the demo company exactly, but this is the income for this last quarter, the profit and loss. It's got significant expenses there and how they compare to the previous quarter. It's got your cash balance. It's got your debtors and creditors payable days as well. So this is actually quite a handy little snapshot. It's a new one. It's in pilot phase still, but that's quite handy. The other screen that's on this business screen is the short-term cash flow. I'm not sure how handy this one is. If you have payroll, if you've got employees, I don't think it's as handy as it could be because it doesn't include payroll in here. But basically what it does include is it looks at what bills you've got to pay, what invoices you're expecting to receive in the next week or the next month. You can either choose week or month, and then it shows you a short-term cash flow there. But I mean, for businesses where you've got employees, then that's a significant part of your business and that's not included in here. I know that they're looking at adding that in. So, yeah, that, I guess we just keep our eyes on this to see how it changes in the future. Okay, the next section I wanted to just look over with you is accounting. So I did briefly talk about reports with you, but I'll just go into that now. Go into the report screen. Okay, so this is an overview of all the reports here. The ones that have been starred here, that's a little shortcut where you can put your favorites, so that when you then click on accounting, any that have been starred here come up as reports in this screen. So then you can take them off, unstar them, and they're not there anymore. And then, yeah, so you can add and take. You probably just want your key reports there. So these are some of the key financial reports here, profit and loss and balance sheet. There's also your activity statement here, which is obviously for your BAS, monthly or quarterly. And your activity statement will pull through GST, and it will also pull through any payroll information if you're using the payroll section. So it's got the BAS here. I'll just save this and continue. And then we'll just go to, for example, okay, so this is pulling through, well, it's not because I've chosen the wrong period here. Let's have a look if we go to the, we should have practiced this one before I come to you guys. If I go into September, it's pulling through some GST there, your sales and your expenses. It's not pulling through any wages because there's no wages being set up in the demo company, but basically this is where your activity statement is. So if I go back into reports here as well, so there's some other reports that you might want to use. There's fixed assets, which we can help you set up if you've got plant and equipment you want to set up. We set it up for tax purposes anyway. There's the debtors and creditors reports here. Some inventory reports and payroll reports. So, okay. One of the ones that I think is very useful is this account's transactions report. If you ever want to look at what's gone through a particular account for a particular period, this is a nice report. You can basically go in and say, okay, for this financial year, choose an item. It might be an expense. It might be repairs, for example. Okay, what else? Legal expenses. I'm not sure if there's anything in that one. Okay, yep, and you can see what expenses have gone through there. If you've used the email to invoice feature, when you click into that expense, it'll have a copy of the invoice there. If it's not there, you can actually upload it at this stage. You can upload a copy of that invoice. And what we recommend to clients is that as much as possible, not for all your small cash expenses, but as much as possible, upload that documentation into your Xero file, because then at the end of the year, you don't have to come to us with a big lever arch file with all your invoices. They're all there. We can see them. You can see them at any time as well. You can go back and search for that transaction and get a copy of that invoice, so it's there saved for you. So I know that I did have a question from someone there that basically said, does Xero give you a backup of all of your files or all of these invoices? It doesn't have a backup as such, but the invoices are stored and saved in those various expenses. There's also another way to upload those documents. If you go here, click on the name and go to Files, and in the Files section here, this is where documents can be uploaded as well into Xero. And then you can upload files here. You can create folders. So we might want to create a new folder. We might want to call it Fixed Assets, for example, and you can save copies here of all of your plant and equipment, motor vehicles, that sort of thing. You might want to have a folder that says loans, or you might want to do it by year date. But basically, if you upload all your documents into Xero here, then they're here for as long as you want them. They're here for your accountant to see as well. So it's really convenient to have them sitting there. Okay, so I'll just go out of some of these screens. I usually end up with way too many tabs open. So back in this report screen, I think that's probably all we need to talk about here. So if we go down to accounting, the other thing I wanted to talk about in this accounting screen here is there's a manual journals part. We wouldn't normally encourage clients to use this very often, but of course you can if you've got a bookkeeper or if you're experienced with journals. But that's where your manual journals are, and the chart of accounts is also here. And this is where if you wanted to go into this point here, and if you wanted to, we will set up the chart for you, but you can go in and add a new account very easily here at any time. So, okay, so that's that screen there. Okay, go to the payroll screen. So payroll in Xero is very user-friendly. Obviously, we've got clients that use other payroll systems. We've got clients that use KeyPay, and we use that for some of our clients, and also they use WageEasy. WageEasy and KeyPay are a lot more detailed than Xero. And I've got a question here from one of the attendees that does Xero work with, does the payroll have awards set up in it? It doesn't have awards automatically set up. And I know that some of the other payroll functions do, and there are also some other apps that Xero syncs with, such as Deputy, that has all the awards in there. Xero doesn't. So basically you just need to refer to the awards when you're setting up your employees to make sure that they're on the correct pay rates. But apart from that, I really recommend Xero as being a very easy payroll module. Basically, to go in and set up a new employee, we would help you set up your employees, but you can basically go into employees here. You can see the employees, and then we can add a new employee very quickly. When you've set up an employee, you can then invite them into the payroll hub, which means that they would then have access to adding in timesheets. They would also be able to, this is where you send an employee invite. They would be able to see what leave's available for them, and they would be able to apply for leave in that tab as well. And they'd also be able to go in and see their past pay slips, which is very handy as well. And at the end of the year, they'd be able to see their year-end finalisation. Used to be able to see the pay-as-you-go summary, but we don't have pay-as-you-go summaries anymore with the new STP. So this is the employee screen. So it's got the employment details, the tax file number details. When new employees come in, you can basically add them in here, and then you can file this. So there's no need to fill out the paperwork. It just gets filed automatically, the tax file number declaration. You can set up leave for employees here. Yep, different annual leave, carers leave, and long service leave. You can see what leave people have taken. Set up the employees' bank account details so that we can then upload an ABA file automatically into your bank to pay people. And the key thing here as well is setting up a pay template for each employee, where you would set up their standard hours, whether it's per week or per fortnight, depending on what pay template you're using. And you set up deductions, superannuation, and anything else that's there. And then when you run a pay run, it brings all of that in automatically. And then the only thing you have to do then is change if they've got leave that's gone through, or if they've worked extra hours, you would add those in. If it's a casual employee, then you would go in and change their hours anyway. So to run a pay run, if you go into payroll and then pay employees. There's already a draft pay run in there, but to add a pay run, you would go in, select pay period, and add a pay run there. I won't do that because there's a draft one in there. If you go into the draft there's people in there already, and this is basically just populated from that standard pay run setting. But for example, if we go into Oliver, and if he's worked less hours than that, we can just easily go in and say, okay, he's only worked 60 hours for this week. And then it changes his hours, it changes his tax, and it changes the super. So that all saves there. Okay. So I'm going to save that first. Okay, and then once you've finalised the pay run, and if you're set up for STP, which we would help you set that up if you need our help, we will post the pay run. Yes, I want to post it. And at that stage, we would file the pay run for STP purposes. And filing for STP is a simple matter of just clicking on filing, clicking on that, and submit to the ATO. So that's really simple. Okay. Now, in most versions of Xero, apart from the very basic version, there's automatic super. So basically, there's a one-off setup of super where you have to go in and choose which bank account you want the super to be paid from. And then what happens then is each month, this isn't set up for the demo company, but basically each month, each quarter, depending on when you're paying super, you would go in and you would say, I'd like to pay super, and it would automatically calculate the super and it will pay it as a BPay payment. So that's very easy as well. Just trying to think. Okay, timesheets. Not everyone wants to use timesheets, but people, you can use timesheets if you like, and you can give your client, employees access to timesheets. They enter in their timesheets and then they get sucked up into the pay run that you're using. There's not really much else there to talk about as far as payroll goes. Xero does sync, as I said, with other payroll apps such as Deputy. It does. I've got a question here from one of the attendees. Does Xero sync with KeyPay? Yes, it does. So if you're already using KeyPay, then we can integrate that with Xero. If you haven't got many employees, I would suggest maybe moving them across to Xero because payroll is included for most of the Xero modules. I'll go through that at the end, but it does integrate with KeyPay as well, yes. Okay. So that's all for payrolls. The final screen that I wanted to go through here is the contact screen. So, okay, this is where your customers and suppliers are, and it's very easy to set up suppliers and customers in here. And then once they're set up, if you fully set them up, then that's when you can add in your bank details, add in the bank details for them down here. And you can also add in when you want them due, that sort of thing, when you want them to pay by. There's lots and lots of settings here, but if you set up all those details there for your customers, then it makes it a lot easier to invoice out to them, or if it's a supplier, it makes it easier to pay them. So that's where you would set up your contacts in Xero. Just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to go through as far as that goes, and any other questions. I don't think there are. So what I'll just do now is I'll just quickly go through the pricing for Xero. So, yeah. Right. So the Xero pricing is based on the number of employees. That's how it's structured. So there's a standard Xero file that's used to be for no employees. It's actually now just for 2 employees. And then the premium 5 is 5 employees, 10 is 10, etc., etc. Each of those Xero software versions are exactly the same as what we just looked at on the screen, except for the ability to have payroll or have employees. So there's no need to learn different versions of the software. The invoicing is the same. The bank reconciliation screen is the same. The reporting is all the same. It's just a matter of how many employees you have, and also whether it's auto super or not. And the versions, it's very easy to go from one version to another. Xero is very scalable. So if you start off with standard and then you say, oh, I've actually got employees I want to include, then we can upgrade you very easily. Similarly, if you start off with 10 and then you say, oh, I've actually had to cut some employees, so I've only got 5 employees now, we can downgrade very easily. And we also have quite a few clients that have seasonal employees. So for 1 or 2 months a year, we upgrade them to, say, Premium 20 to cope with those seasonal employees. And then once that they've left, we can then downgrade the file again. So it's very easy to do. The way that we work at Thorntons is we get a 25% discount. So clients who want to use that discount, we sign you up with a subscription. Then we invoice you monthly for that, usually by direct debit. If you left us, then the file is yours. We transfer the file to you or to your new accountant. So you would never lose access to that file. You'd never lose that data. But we hold the subscription just so that we can get that discount for you. So that's the way that that the pricing works. I've personally migrated quite a few clients across to Xero. I really love Xero. I know that it's hard with software. You get used to what you're used to. I've worked with MyUp as well. I've worked with AgriMaster. Happy to help clients with all your software, but I really do like Xero. So I've helped clients with the migration. The way that we've done that is we've done the work behind the scenes. We've set up the chart of accounts. We've brought in customers and suppliers, and we've set up bank feeds. And then I've given clients a one-on-one, 1 hour overview. And I usually set a fee at the start of that process and say it's going to cost you this much for this. If you don't want that much detail, that's fine. We can just set up the file, give you access, and you can go ahead and do that yourself. It's really up to you how much you want us involved. But we're always here to help. And we're always here to answer questions. I'll just quickly go back to the Xero because one thing I forgot. Sorry. I'll just go back into here. One thing I forgot to mention is that there is a lot of help options with Xero. So as you go from screen to screen, you'll see that there's little videos here, but there's also a very extensive help menu here. So anything that you need help with, you can search there. You can also go to Xero Central, and in Xero Central, there are training videos. There are numerous training videos. There's also there's Xero TV for certain snapshot training of just certain items that you can look at. And there's also Xero Support. I found Xero Support to be very good. One thing some people don't like about it is that you can't just call them. It's always via Xero Support, which is via email, but 9 times out of 10, they'll get back to me within an hour. And if they need to, they will call you and they will share screens with you to get it resolved. So I do find their support very good. It's a lot quicker than some of the other softwares. And yes, usually you can get a resolution within the hour, is what my experience of it has been anyway. Okay. I think that that's all for this stage, and there's no more questions. So I might end the session now. If you have got any further questions, please feel free to email me or call us here at Thorntons. We're very happy to help. Otherwise, take a look. You can sign up for a 30-day trial and have a look at the demo company. But if you did want to move to Xero, I'd really recommend calling us, because I'd rather us help you at least with the initial stages and get the setup done correctly. Anyway, thanks very much for joining me, and have a good day. Thank you.